Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Ask the Expert at the Plastics Caps and Closures Conference. I'm Joe Pryweller, Conference Director for Plastics News. Our speaker today is Jerry O'Grady, Market Development Specialist for Chroma Color Corporation. Jerry will discuss Chroma's patented technologies that support aggressive sustainability targets without sacrificing the crucial visual needs of the brand or required cost controls. He will answer your questions after the presentation is completed. Please send any questions you have to pnevents@crane.com, or if you are watching along on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you can send any questions in through those platforms. With that, I will hand the presentation over to Jerry O'Grady of Chroma Color Corporation. Jerry, yours.
Well, thank you, Joe. Appreciate the introduction, and thanks to all for joining today. As referenced by Joe, over the last 3 years, Chroma Color has been built through acquisition of 7 well-established custom color concentrate companies: Breen, Hudson, Carolina, Chroma, PCC, and most recently Pellet, are all names that many of you may recognize, as all have been in business for over 50 years. With the acquisitions, we have created a group of exceptional talent, capabilities, manufacturing capacities, and geographic footprint into a single business entity, Chroma Color Corporation. Today, Chroma Color maintains a leading specialty color and additive concentrate position, supplying the highest of quality with some of the shortest lead times in the plastics marketplace. The business, with sales in excess of $200 million, has extensive technical and market experience, along with a footprint of 6 North American manufacturing facilities. Our extensive product lines of colorants and additives have performed exceptionally well for customers over 5 decades, specializing in markets that include packaging, consumer, medical, and healthcare, with specialized and patented technologies, along with a strong commitment to environmental sustainability. Next slide, please. And with that out of the way, let's get started. As we're all aware, the largest consumer product companies continue their commitment to using less plastic within their packaging through directives such as structural redesign and configuration, along with thin walling initiatives and programs to move their packages into more commodity type resins which already have a greater consumer recycling programs already in place. Some examples of this include movements into one-piece closures with the elimination of liners, evaluations of alternate polypropylene and polyethylene grades, including HDPE, and on a grander scale, the exploration of PET as a replacement for large volume HDPE bottle applications. This path is certainly highlighted by the continual activity within the Association of Plastics Recyclers. In fact, in 2020, the list of APR recycling demand champions now exceeds 50 of the most recognizable consumer packaging companies. These champions continue to lead the industry in sustainability targets, spearheaded by the increased use of post-consumer recycled materials. While Chroma Color is fully engaged in the technical developments to support these usage goals, including regeneration of polymer properties, manufacturing processability, and of course, end-use performance characteristics, our brief discussion today will focus on the visual aspects related to a brand's desire in maintaining a specific color or special effect for a pleasing on-shelf package. As we all know, historically, package developments have been focused on the use of 10 to 25% recycled content. However, we're currently involved with several programs to increase these levels into the 40 to 50% range, along with the ultimate stretch goal of hitting 100% level of PCR, which, if you watch Tuesday afternoon, this goal is a lot closer than previously thought, as Allison Lynn shared some recent successes achieved at Westfall Technique, and there's some very exciting stuff down the pipe. This and other commitments towards a full circular economy will continue to challenge the supply chain pipeline in providing quality, high-grade recycled materials, and that challenge is already being felt within the various brand owners. Again, the increased levels of PCR directly impacting the visual appearance. A good indicator of the supply struggles facing the U.S. recycling industry are indicated by the most recent PET collection rates, which have hovered around 30% in the US in each of the last 10 years. Whereas in Europe, the EU has been successful in obtaining a recycling rate as high as 63% in 2018. And as mentioned earlier, there are many global powerhouses which have recognized this recycling supply disconnect and are pushing hard to help change that scenario here in the US. To name just a few, Clorox, Unilever, Coca-Cola have all published papers on their active engagement with regional and local community programs supporting the enhanced recycling efforts. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So with this next slide, it was built to show a collection of visuals displaying the various stages of the recycling stream. The upper left photo displays a typical collection of curbside waste. And if you look closely, you can see it does display examples of the Caps On initiative, which is obviously very encouraging. This is followed by a photo of mixed grade bottle closures, and then finally an example of what pulverized reground flake material would look like, which is displayed is actually a bit of a mixed bag of color. So we'll spend some time in later slides touching upon further sorting techniques. However, what is captured across the bottom are 2 grades of polypropylene PCR, along with an example of a virgin polypropylene on the far right, more for a point of reference. These 2 grades of PCR provide very good example of what is commercially available today. And as the tightness in supply continues and recycling demands increase, there's a fear that the quality of the available product will become negatively impacted. The inherent color space of the PCR provides a very interesting challenge when attempting to support a brand owner's desired on-shelf color and special effect. Along with the inherent dullness, there is also a noticeable cloudiness and opacity associated with PCR resin. This not only impacts the ability to hit a color hue, but often imparts a chalkiness or softening within that desired end-use color. The historical solution to this dilemma was simply to increase the colorant master batch within the end-use component. Unfortunately, this higher use rate created 2 very distinct concerns. First, obviously, was a cost. As use rates increased from historical 2, 3, and 4% letdown ratios into previously unheard of 8, 9, 10, and even sometimes 12% use rates, the individual component costs dramatically increased. The second is the potential feeding and processing issues, particularly when you hit the highest letdowns when either using pellet or liquid-based colorants. Never mind the usage of greater volumes of color and the impact on the company's sustainability goals. Here we enter Chroma Color G series of materials. These patented technologies were specifically developed to address these collection of concerns by providing extremely high loaded colorants and effects for use at very low dosing rates within a clean, convenient, rapidly melting, pelletized form. Next slide, please. Under actual consumer case studies, Chroma Color has been able to work with the 2 grades of PCR and provide very low letdown ratio pellet options compared to standard master batch. As is displayed in the upper left, in using the white grade of PCR, Chroma was able to reduce the letdown ratio from a typical industry 4% package into a use rate below 1% using the G3 technology. The second example down in the lower left takes another color and pushes the required letdown from the needed 3% use rate into a much more economical 0.5% pellet use rate, still maintaining the desired color space. And finally, one of the most challenging tests was to provide a very clean and crisp navy blue within the darker gray colored PCR. While we were told the competitive offering was approaching a double-digit use rate, as you can see, Chroma Color was able to provide a solution at 1.75%, again using the patented G3 pellet technology. Next slide, please. As mentioned, we'll now spend a few minutes on one of the challenges faced when sorting the recycled waste stream. The sorting and separating of materials is by far one of the most difficult aspects of creating a usable PCR supply. There are many techniques used to sort through the curbside collection articles, often starting with human interaction and optical recognition, along with the popular float sink process of separation. However, another area which is making great strides is the continual expansion of NIR reflectance spectroscopy. This technology is used to recognize the base material, not the color. NIR, which is near infrared. That scanning measures the reflection intensity of a specific wavelength, not only sorting plastics from metals and papers and fibers, but also within the major packaging plastics, such as polyethylene, polypropylene, PET, and so on. The middle chart captures, in very simple terms, the understanding that each plastic material will provide a unique NIR reflection at a given wavelength. Hence, this would then allow for an air jet or other mechanical apparatus to separate each type of polymer during the high-speed sorting process. However, since NIR sorting is based on wavelength reflection, this provides an interesting scenario for the color industry, particularly when it comes to fluorescent packages, and even more importantly, the packaging industry's most popular color, which is today still is black. Each of these imparts difficulties, as items such as optical brighteners used in the fluorescent package will create an unrecognizable reflection. And also, as represented in the lower right picture, the use of the most popular ingredient or pigment in developing black olefin color, known as carbon black, actually absorbs the NIR wavelength, which basically creates virtually no reflection, meaning the black components will not be recognized during the sorting process, and thereby simply falling into the mixed materials bin, eventually finding their way into a landfill. Next slide, please. Interestingly, the challenge to provide a PET black are much easier than compared to the polypropylenes or polyethylene blacks, as PET resins, such as those in the bottle industry, have the ability to use solvent dyes, which can either be an actual black dye or, as displayed here, the combination of multiple colored dyes, creating an acceptable black visual color. However, within the polyolefin world of polypropylenes and polyethylenes and HDPEs, the option to use dyes is not available, mainly due to the chemical incompatibility, nor can we mix different colored pigments together, as that would simply create a very muddy and very unpleasant color space. Chroma Color has taken this challenge on directly and have been successful in creating a polyolefin black which has received rave reviews from multiple industry leaders, including one very large global OEM, stating, "This is by far the industry's best polypropylene black." Although not totally visible within the on-screen photo, the Chroma Color NIR black provides a very deep, dark black with good consistency across several different PCR loadings, which can be successfully NIR sorted and is substantially more pleasing compared to other industry options, which inherently display a noticeable dark purple or more often the dreaded dark brown undertones. Next slide, please. And in closing, Chroma Color has been actively involved in another rapidly approaching market trend, the exploration of moving overall color space into a digital reading with an L value above 40. This initiative relates to a greater environmental responsibility goal of creating plastic packaging which provides increased value within the consumer recycling stream. That simply being, the lighter the color, the greater perceived value it will have during its next life. Chroma Color's strong development focus within each of our regional labs allows for unprecedented collaboration in creating a color space that maintains a strong linkage to your original unique brand color, but also successfully supports the above 40 L value outlined within the APR initiative. And with that, I hope this has provided an expanded understanding of some of the trends and challenges, particularly facing the incorporation of recycled materials, along with a snapshot on how Chroma Color and our patented G-Series materials can help you directly address those challenges. I'd now like to send it back over to Joe, along with welcoming Jeff Smink, Chroma Color Vice President of Technology, to join me for any audience questions.
Thanks, Jeff, for a terrific presentation. That was great to hear about the G3 color and how that's being used in some of the recycling targets that are out there and some of the mandates, and really help with that from a brand perspective. As Jeff said, I'd like to introduce Jeff Smink. As Jerry said, I'd like to introduce Jeff Smink, Vice President of Technology, who will assist Jerry with the Q&A portion of the live stream. As a reminder, please send any questions to pnevents@crane.com, or if you are watching via YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you can send your questions in through those platforms. Jeff, I think I'll put you on the spot first and ask you the first question, if that's okay. Are there any FDA concerns or restrictions related to the use of G2 or G3 materials?
Thanks, Joe, and good afternoon. No, the application in FDA and medical certifications, there are no restrictions with G2 or G3. Both are formulated with FDA polymeric carriers, and they will not promote any migration in their FDA. So we're good to roll on FDA and medical certifications.
Great. I was going to ask you, medical applications are a market for you guys too, as you're looking at this?
Absolutely. We have over 105 DMF registered colors as of today, and we continue to build that library.
Great. So food applications, medical applications primarily, or are there others too that are of interest?
G2 and G3 are adoptable across all markets. G2 has a special fit in the outdoor markets, traditionally for olefins. Very high loadings of UV and antioxidant can be incorporated in the G2. The G3, on the other hand, is available across every resin system. On the crystalline side of materials, it can hold very high levels of dyes. So over in your PET applications, up to 42% in dyes in your styrene packaging and so forth. Same thing, 42% in dyes. Unheard of in liquid color or any other standard solid base color.
Great. And is this just good for injection molding? Can be used in other type of processes also?
Injection, stretch blow, injection blow, sheet extrusion, and we're actually trying it in compression molding at this point.
Really? So really across the board in a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
Jerry, what applications would the G series work in compared to liquid color?
Oh, very good question. Thanks, Joe. It basically, the Chroma Color G series can run in all applications, whether it be a liquid or a pellet color. I mean, one of the things we like to say is G series provides all the favorable financials associated with liquid, along with the well-known ease and convenience provided by pellet. So there really is no application out there in the pellet world or the liquid world where the G series would not actually be a great fit.
Super, that's excellent. So really across the board, are there any feeding issues associated with the suggested low levels that we're talking about in your presentation?
No, and I guess my apologies for sometimes people get a little startled and sort of surprised by the letdown ratios that we're running with the G3. But no, it runs in, as I mentioned, it runs in all current pellet situations or liquid environments. The only restriction would be the use of a gravimetric feeder. And as we all know, many processors already have that equipment on site. And for those that don't, Chroma Color has partnered with a fantastic global feeder supplier we can connect the dots and make sure that everything is supplied as needed, if that is the case. Taking that further, Chroma Color technicians always are available to be on site for training and support for those initial setups and startups. And I think people will find that once everything is all set up and they're running the G series of materials, it really runs as easy as a standard pellet. But again, providing all the favorable financials of liquid, but with the ease and convenience of a pellet environment.
Terrific. Here's a question from our audience, and I'll address that to Jeff. Does G3 affect G3 color affect the dimensions and strengths of caps and closures?
No, in fact, G3 and G2 will actually enhance the base resin's physical properties. In use of colorants, whether liquid or solid, the carrier system can have an influence on the physical properties of the base resin. With G2 and G3, there's very little carrier system, which will lessen the impact on the physical properties of that base resin.
Terrific. Question from the audience for Jerry. Jerry, during your presentation, you made a mention to laser marking during your introduction. Can the G3 materials be used in laser marking applications?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. Yes, actually, they can indeed. We have a full product grouping of laser marking materials. They're actually trademarked as Chromark, and they can absolutely be used with the patented G3 technology. In fact, G3 and Chromark are the perfect pairing for each other. As Jeff was alluding to, the G3s have the ability to be extremely highly loaded. And we all know with laser ingredients, it's critical to get as much stuff in that master batch as possible, because the more you have in there, the better chance you have at successful high speed marking environments. So there's a benefit to linking those two together. So G3 is the perfect combination.
Great. Are there stock additives that are available also, Jerry?
Yeah, that opens up an interesting scenario because with laser packages, we do have some. I should preface it by saying yes, there are some colors that we have available that can be marked, but with laser, there's a tremendous amount of variables, and it's always beneficial to have a high level of collaboration during the development of your specific laser color or environment. Things like the laser types, obviously the YAGs, fibers, and so on. Your starting color, your marking color, the desired contrast of that mark, and we can even affect it so that there's different types of marks, whether it be foaming, engraving, carbonization. So there's lots of different things to consider. But the one thing is, Chroma's got a lot of experience in this area with our Chromark package, including having an on-site in-house laser to do trials and testing. So stock colors, yeah, and additives, we do have some, but truly to fit the bill perfectly, we want to do a total in-house collaboration.
Jerry, you also made mention to PCR content and use of that anyway. Either one of you want to address the issue of, I know you're looking at getting to 40-50%. You mentioned, I think, target goals. How soon is that, and how can that be done with some of this?
I'll hit first, and then if Jeff wants to pick up.
Sure.
We're running at 40-50% today. We have
today. Okay.
Yeah, so there's several applications that are already using that high. As I say, historically, it's always been sort of that 10 to 25 has been the ultimate, the sort of the goal. Things have now moved, for the most part, into 30, 40, 50, and obviously down the road, or some places that have it today, 100% usage.
Really. And is that, are you looking to increase that goal and go a little further with it? I imagine you mentioned eventually getting closer to 100% if we'll ever get that point, but at least closer to that. Is that feasible to get higher than that percentage right now?
Sure. I mean, again, the G3 allows those high loadings of effects and pigments. So to overcome the detriment or the difficulty of the color, the visual color, which individuals will see on shelf or the consumer will see on shelf, you need to put in more color to overcome those detrimental on shelf colors. So using a highly loaded package like G2s and G3s allows the processor to cut back down into that lower 1, 2, 3, 4% use rates, opposed to what we're seeing from competitive pellet out there of being in the 8, 9, and as I mentioned, well into the double digits.
Great.
Actually,
yeah,
we color a white material that is 100% PCR in very chromatic colors with the G3.
Excellent.
Great. Excellent. Well, that's super. And Jeff, could this material then once it goes through the recycling process, can it be reused in other applications too, and continue on in the circular economy, if I get those words out?
Absolutely. What we're on the other side of the coin, what we're trying to develop, and we have some samples and trials in place right now, one in PET and one in olefins, is using PCR as our carrier resin, and more to come on that. But the PET carrier resin post-consumer product is looking very promising. On the olefin side, we have a little bit ways to go. That stream is very limited on the melt flows and color space that's available. But we continue to work on developing a 100% recycled PCR carrier system for our concentrates.
Great, excellent. So hoping to close a loop anyway. Let me ask you a little bit about the NIR black. I know you mentioned it's been a problem with polyolefins, but you think you have a solution. What's behind some of that? What are some of the key attributes that allow you to do that with polypropylene, polyethylene, and some of that?
It's basically been the experience of our staff here. We've got a lot of experienced formulation experts and PhDs. There's two ways to approach this, and we've approached it from the inorganic, which is the least expensive of pigments, and by different formulations and different trials, we've been able to come up with what Jerry has explained as being the leader in the clubhouse, if you will, for the most jetness and solid black looking color in the market today.
Terrific. Well, with that, we're running out of time. I think I'll ask Jerry if he has any final comments that you want to get, any parting words that you want to leave our audience with today.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. First off, I'd just like to thank everyone for their interest in Chroma Color. As mentioned, the visual challenges are only one aspect of the greater recycling sustainability story. Chroma Color has a whole host of other materials to support your needs, be it our collection of performance enhancement additives, which we kind of touched on, or as Jeff mentioned, our extensive drug master file listings. They're all highlighted by the industry-leading G-Series patented technologies. Chroma Color is eager to partner in support of all your color needs and sustainability goals. So a huge thank you to everyone for joining today.
Great. Thanks, Jerry and Jeff, for providing great insights into the G-Series family and how that fits into some of the sustainability initiatives that are really underway by a lot of companies right now. If you have additional questions for Jeff or Jerry, their email addresses are on the screen. And I'd also like to thank everybody else for watching too and for some good questions. The next session for the 2020 Plastics, Caps, and Closures Conference begins at 2 p.m. Eastern Time today and features a special recycling panel with insights from the Association of Plastic Recyclers, the Recycling Partnership, and the Plastics Industry Association. We also have another full day of sessions on Friday, including a discussion sponsored by the Plastics Industry Association with finalists for Plastics News Plastics, Caps, and Closures Innovation Award and the awarding of the winning entry. I'm sure you'll find a lot of these submissions really interesting and a unique use of caps and closures. And don't forget, it's not too late to use the virtual event site to schedule meetings and connect with more than 700 attendees during the conference. Finally, you can also review any sessions at any time by going to pncaps.crane.com. I look forward to joining you at a future session. Have a great day.